Walter here from the 28th Division Association Oral History Project. It is the first part of April, and I'm here with the retired Brigadier General Star Seip. Is that how I pronounce your name?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. Well, listen, thank you so much for your willingness to come and sit down and talk with us a little bit about your career and what you've done in the military, and we greatly appreciate it. So let's get started. A couple
Okay.
biographical questions first, if you like. Where were you born?
I was born in the Good Samaritan, Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And what were your parents or siblings feeling about you joining the service?
Well, even though my grandfather was part of the 2nd 104th Cav, and he was actually a guard to the unknown soldier, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and my aunt was also in the Army as an X-ray tech. I kind of sprung it on them that I joined without even telling them, because I
Sure.
needed money for college, and I thought I needed an extra challenge in my life. So
Yeah, sure. Well, a lot of people joined because of looking for college benefits and so on. That's a great program that they were able to do to entice people to join. Worked out well. So,
yeah.
what primary and secondary schools or college did you attend?
Um, well, I started off in Northern Lebanon High School. Then I went to Mansfield University, and then I went to uh, Walden University to get my doctorate.
Okay, so
So,
you had your doctorate kind of when you're in the early part of your military career?
actually, I was a late bloomer. So I was actually a lieutenant colonel when I started my doctorate program.
Okay.
And I think I forgot to tell you, I went to Marywood as my master's degree. So,
Yeah, yeah, okay, good.
yeah.
What kind of jobs did you hold prior to entering the military?
Um, a waitress.
Okay,
That was, yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
No, well, I was early,
Excuse
18
me.
years old when I joined. So,
Hmm. Can you tell us about when you went into the military and you said already you joined for money, for college benefits. What branch did you enter initially then? What,
Army
what
Reserves,
Army
the Army
Reserve?
Reserves. Yeah.
Okay, what was your MOS when you first came in then?
I was a 91 Alpha, which is a combat medic.
Okay, yeah. So the training you received prior to going to OCS then was mostly in the medical field. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What's your most vivid memory of your time in training, in military training? Do you remember?
Y- yeah. Well, I remember as a cadet, me and another cadet went to NBC training in Fort Dix. And they said it was 2 weeks long, easy stuff, no problem, right? And then I sat down and with my other cadet, and let's just say we were like, those are the equations we got to figure out. I
Yeah.
was just like, and why do we got to do this? And I was like very um surprised by the end that I knew how to do everything and actually explain it to folks. And I was just amazed the good instruction that you got because I was scared out of my mind to actually know anything about NBC.
Well,
So.
sure. You were young going in there. It's something new. Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Was
absolutely.
was there a particular instructor that stood out or stands out in your mind? And if so, why?
Yes, there was actually in my captain career course, there was a Lieutenant Colonel Patera. The reason why is that in our briefings, all the captains would stand in line before they went in for their briefing, and they all say, I hope I don't have Lieutenant Colonel Patera because he would rip you apart if you were not prepared at all. And he would give you like three depths of questions bit that were embedded in your briefing, and you better know all the answers. Now they had other names for him, but in the end, as I got more rank, I kind of understood why he did that. So
Yeah, well, he had a purpose. He had a
yeah,
purpose
yes,
in
he had a
mind.
purpose. Yes, yes. I didn't like his purpose at the time, but I couldn't, I understand it as I got more rank.
Sure.
So,
Did you qualify with any specialized equipment during your training?
I was a sharpshooter for the M16, and then I certified on the grenade at one time, and that's about it. I mean, and the pistol, the 9 millimeter. So that's the only thing I got to do. So.
Thinking back, what was the hardest part of your training? Now, this could be anywhere from boot camp to specialized training.
Well, I can tell you that boot camp was by far the toughest thing that I ever went through. It was the lack of sleep and the lack of time for food. That I tell you what, lack of sleep, and even when I was deployed, the lack of sleep really got to you. I mean, you can make, let's just say, it would take extra effort to do a mind problem in your head versus, something that would take a minute, it takes you 10 minutes to do, because you just can't think straight. And even in when I did what they call war fighters, and I was at the night shift, they would try to give us these really hard equations to figure out. And in the end, um, we broke it down to, like, it was called patient evacuation. And all smart guys with us. I mean, one was a registered nurse, the other one was an occupational therapist, and it came down to counting different color M&Ms for keeping track of the medevacs coming in and out.
So,
Uh, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you just don't think very fast on your feet. So,
well, that's a way, I guess, right? Um, One of my next question was going to be, what was the hardest part of military lifestyle for you to adapt to? Now, you alluded to, the challenges in basic training and other training, but is there something else that was a little bit more difficult for you in the way of the military style to adapt and to adopt to?
um, I would probably say that the biggest thing to adapt to is knowing that you have to do and be disciplined to do everything that they tell you to do. And again, that's a good thing when you translate that to civilian life. And when you go to civilian life, it is when you meet people in the military and civilian, you know exactly what to do and how to do it, and you work as a team. I think teamwork is by incredible the most basic but concept that people should always know, but in civilian life they don't know that.
Yeah, that's a good,
And
good point.
yeah.
What was the easiest part of military life for you to adapt to?
Um, I was the youngest of 5 children, so I kind of knew how to follow. And I knew how to. The most difficult thing is that when they put me in a leadership thing, is like, oh crap, I got to do this now. But following was pretty good. I knew how to do that, and I knew how to predict if someone was going to be a good leader versus a not so good leader. And it all came down to taking care of the people under them when they actually were the leader. So
Okay. Did you deploy to a combat zone?
yes, I went to in 2006 to 7, I was in Baghdad, Iraq, in the international zone. Um, yeah, for
Okay.
a whole year.
What are your recollections of that, or those experiences that you're willing to share with us?
Yeah, I was with the 28th JSG. And it was with when we went over there, we went over there with about 70 people from what they called DMOC, Division Medical Operations Center at that time. And we were joined with Air Force and some Navy folks when we got over there. And whole point was to support the area. Now, with that said, they came with other duties for many other officers. And honestly, I didn't go over there as a medical service officer. I was what they called trainable. Okay. And I started off being a badging officer. And then we had to flip out. And then I became the adjudicator in the security office. And I was the only one in that office that didn't have a top secret clearance. So that was fun. And then during that whole year, I was sold to go on the deployment because it was in the international zone and it was supposed to be secure, right? Well, as I learned more about it is where the parliament or the government actually stays. And it was fine for the first month. Then after the first month, they kind of realized we were there as well as everybody else and the government, and they didn't like the government. So there was rockets that came in every day, 6 at a time. So you had to be wearing your gear in about 130-degree weather and making sure you knew where the bunkers were and know how to take care of yourself. Certainly that was a little rough, but there were some fun facts that I got to do, or fun things I got to do when I was over there. Saddam Hussein was at his prime at that time, and he was on trial. So I got to go see his trial. And that was for one day. I certainly we call it voluntold to do so. And I seen him, just to give you an idea what that was all about. It was at the time that he actually fired all his lawyers. And that particular day, the judge was just exhausted by his whole firing of his lawyers. Now he was defending himself. And he kept on bringing up the mass graves that he was responsible for. And they would bring up the map of all the mass graves. And he kept denying that he knows anything about these mass graves. And it was the first time he was hearing about them. And then we actually got trouble. We were in a glass container where we sat, and we were in the back using headphones to interpret the Arabic that they were talking about. And he says to Saddam Hussein, "Well, Mr. Hussein, if you wouldn't fire your lawyers, you might be knowing what is going on these days." And at that time, we laughed, people in uniform. And the judge looked at us and says, "One more outburst like that, you're going to be kicked out." And so at that time, actually Saddam Hussein looked at us and shook his head, like that. And then he came back, and then they wanted to continue the trial. And all I know is that their trial's a little different, is that you would start at 9 o'clock in the morning and you wouldn't have no breaks at all. And you go to 3:30 to 4 o'clock, and no phones or anything like that were allowed in the place. But I automatically drew a picture of what it looked like with what the courtroom looked like.
Wow.
Another fun thing I got to do was how one day I was again in the security office, and the email came on. Now I had Nipper and Sipper. Okay. at my desk. And when I uh, got an email, it was on the SIPRnet, which is a secret email. And it says, do not say anything to anybody. You have been selected and you need to come to this room tomorrow at 8 o'clock. You do not say anything to anybody, but you can tell your immediate supervisor that you will be gone for 8 hours. And or not 8 hours. They just said that you had a report at this time and for an undisclosed amount of time. And I said, oh, okay. And I got suspicious about the email because, you know, it's obvious, right? But I said it was on SIPRnet. So I said, all right, after I got suspicious, I went over to my immediate supervisor and I said to him what this email said. And he says to me, okay. And I was like, I was very confused by the whole thing. So I go downstairs at this room and reported in, and they go to me, they said to me, please read this statement and agree to it. And I said, all right, what am I doing today? Just read the statement and you will know. So it ended up that I got to, with two other folks, from the Air Force as well as myself, got to count Saddam Hussein's money in the embassy in his vault, which was approximately 42 million.
Oh, wow.
So,
How long did it
yeah.
take you to do that?
Well, the good news is that it was in big bulks of like $10,000. So, and so we had to count the big packages, and then it took about 7 hours. And then of course there was MPs with us, but at the end you were allowed to take pictures. And so I got a couple pictures, but also in this vault, they had Saddam Hussein's swords and hats and everything like that. And they said, all right, for doing this duty, you get to go, look at his swords and hats and take pictures if you'd like. So I got a couple pictures with, holding $10,000 and a hat of Saddam Hussein and a sword. So I thought that was kind of cool. So
That is pretty cool. It's pretty unique. Most soldiers don't get that opportunity.
no, no, no. So that was my claim to fame when I was over there. But unfortunately, due to the rockets, I do have to mention that it did take one of our soldiers from the 28th, which was Sean Thomas. He was a sergeant first class, and they promoted him to master sergeant then. So March 27th, 2007. So I'm sure other folks will mention him as well if they were deployed with me. So
How did your combat experience change you?
well, I can honestly say that when I came back, just a short noise would I want to hit the deck, a bang or anything like that, and I would do a twitch or something like that. It took like a good year to get over that, because of the bombs coming in. And the rockets, I should say, rockets. And I was actually in a car with my cousins down at Miami, and we were going through the not so good places of the town. And I remember the mother saying, roll up your windows, things of that nature. And I looked at her, I said, this doesn't seem that bad. And she looks at me like I was crazy, and she goes, well, what do you think? I said, downtown Baghdad looked a lot worse. And she started to laugh.
Sure was.
And she goes, okay, I just need to know who I'm talking to, and reference. So it took a while, and my family, um, my husband was very, very supportive during the whole process. And my sister took helped out with my I had one daughter at that time, and she was 6. So she helped, give her supper and stuff like that. And my husband picked her up. Afterwards, she would actually get off the bus and go to my sister's, help with the homework, and then he would pick her up and take her home. So that was all good.
Okay.
And at that time, he was actually, uh, yeah, he ran for the 120 third state representative, and we won, believe it or not. So he was very, very busy at the same time. And I said, "You really want to campaign at the same time I'm getting deployed?" And he said, "Yep, it's a perfect time." So that's what he did. So
Okay. What kinds of friendships and camaraderie uh, did you form while serving and with them?
I formed a great bond with a couple lieutenants when I was over there. There was only 6 females that went over there. It was a Lieutenant Colonel Luba. She was in charge of one of the support cells, and then there was a couple other female lieutenants. And there was one specifically, Lieutenant Walters, Cara Walters, and I called her the BBB, and her name that stood for bold, brassy, and ballsy.
Uh,
Okay. In fact, they used to call us when we were over there, if they could put Walters and Seip in a blender, that would be the perfect person. And I was like, I don't know how to take that. Because I was pretty laid back compared to her, right? So we got along great. We used to go for runs and stuff like that together, and go to the gym. That was our main focus. You got a couple hours off, and that's what we did. Went to the gym together. So
so that was your main recreational activity?
yes, yes, or running, but you had to have a partner to go run with.
Yeah,
So that's
sure.
what we did.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends? How was the system set up to do that? I know it's evolved over time. It's gotten much better, but how was it for you?
It was a primary mail. However, I discovered that there was a DSN line in the office. So I would get in there before anybody else would get in there, and I would give a call every once in a while to my family for about 15 minutes, which was 7 o'clock in the morning Iraq time, which was about 10 o'clock or 9 to 10 o'clock at night for our time. So
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything that you did for good luck?
can't say I did. No,
Nothing?
no.
Interesting. Some people latch on to things, they have a little stuffed animal or a favorite pencil or just really interesting. But so nothing for you.
Well, I mean, I had my own items that I would go to bed with all the time, pillows, and I
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's good luck stuff. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the best part of your service experience? Not just the deployment necessarily, but your entire service experience.
My best part of my service was making friends, serving with other people, going through the same challenges throughout your career, and knowing what each soldier's aspirations were, and then if you can help them out, especially on the civilian pathway, or connect them to the right people. I'll tell you what, connections are the key. If someone had a job at somewhere, you can just reach out and see if that person needed a job. And then also in my expertise was, that was always my side duty, because it was not my as a medical service officer, it was just sort of like administrative. However, I'm a dietitian by trade, so in a lot of regulations, they say go see a dietitian. So I would see them on the side for many, many reasons. So not give them the ultimate what do you call it, advice, but give them a more better advice than their buddy. Let's just
Yeah,
say
sure.
that.
Yeah. Do you recall the last day of your service?
Yes, I do. And it was December 14th, 2021. And actually, the day before, I got a COVID-19 booster shot. And my very last day, I was very sick. I was not feeling that good. And I could honestly say I never felt that bad any time that was in the uniform. Yeah, but I stuck it out to the end and got to the end of the day. But I
Yeah.
had to put my head between my legs a couple times. So
Okay. Do you
yeah.
continue any of the friendships that you had established when you were, let's say, deployed or in service after you left?
Yes, I still keep in contact. My section in DMOC, a Sergeant Major Morse and a Sergeant Booker, and then also Lieutenant Colonel Binmore. Mike. We just call them first names now, but um, yeah, we get together with then we call them training sessions once or twice a year. And then also for our my last um, assignment was the medical readiness detachment. And I always go or been invited back for their change of command or their um, a person leaving command. So, and then all the other past commanders go there as well. And so they were my prior bosses. And then we keep in contact during the year as well, what they're up to and keep up to date with each other.
Did you join any veteran organization?
Yes, I joined the VFW, the American Legion, and then actually, an interesting story when I left the I became friends with the chief of staff, which was a she, and it was Laura McHugh, and she since then got promoted. But that day, she got promoted to 1 star, and she actually asked me that day to start a women's veteran group for our county because she lives in the county. And I said, yes. So that's what I'm doing as well as doing a veteran group for the females in Schuylkill County.
That's fantastic. Yes. Do you attend reunions?
Yes, I actually attended the 10-year reunion for our deployment. So that was back in 2017. So
Okay. Did your service affect the way you relate to others, do you think?
yes, I actually take into account that um, every minute counts, and I try to listen to people versus even when I don't feel like listening, because just when you get like that, um, you miss something in the conversation, and they really could have used a buddy or someone to talk to. You know, and there are times in my past in my military career that when someone took the time to listen to me as well. So I try to do that. Take the time.
Did your military service affect your family? You mentioned you related to your husband a little while ago, but did your military service affect any other members of your family as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. Every time that I had to do a service drill, it would always impact birthdays and major parties, and so they got to a point that they wanted to see my schedule.
Yeah, there you go.
So they would just like, oh, can't have it that day. Star ain't gonna be available. So Yeah, and that would irritate my daughter the most because there was times that she would have like a major thing going on and I'd be like, I can't go. And then there was one time I did ask to miss a couple hours and she got to districts and running and that was on a Saturday. So,
Yeah.
and it was real close. It was Hershey. So,
You kind of alluded to this a little bit, but what are some of the life lessons you've learned from your military service that you'd like to share with viewers?
yeah, probably number one is teamwork. Um, then also good leadership. Good leadership is always taking care of your people. And when I come, even in my civilian career, it's you find good ones and you find not so good ones. And you find ones that um, have a ego, and it's all about them. But there are some that are still, it's all about them, but they're a good leader at the same time, but there's others that are not so good. So,
And finally, one last question for you. Uh, what's the one question that you wish I would have asked that I didn't?
let's see, you pretty well covered all of it. Um, um,
Is there anything you'd like to tell the viewers?
yeah, I would probably the one of the things that as a female perspective is that in the 28th division, there was multiple times that I was the only female in the room, or one or maybe two or three at the time. And you actually know the other females' progression of their career because we kind of keep track of each other. Um, and because there's very few. I actually talked to General McHugh the other day, and she says that when we were in, well, she's still in, but only 50% of Pennsylvania Army National Guard were women. Now it's up to 20%. And when I came in, and when I was in college, I remember actually doing a debate on why women should be in combat units. And I got reamed, let's just say. I'm glad to inform people that after talking to McHugh, General McHugh, there is approximately 320 some women in combat units these days, slots. So I never was able to meet one of those females, but I always wanted to interview one of them just to
Yeah.
see how it is going. So
Hopefully we'll come across we'll have the opportunity to do that at some point here with the
yeah, yeah,
20th Division Association.
yeah.
General, thank you so much again for taking the time to tell us a little bit about you and to share your story with our viewers. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.